Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Alliance Bernstein. Since 2019, employees have impacted our community by giving more than 5,000 hours of volunteerism in Middle Tennessee. AllianceBernstein.com. Alliance Bernstein is not affiliated with National Public Radio.
I'm Khalil A. Colonna, and this is Nashville. I'll be honest, parking downtown in Nashville is a pain. Parking in the rest of Nashville isn't easy either. These sentiments are not mine alone. You need proof? Check out Monday's episode, This is Nashvillians, where contributor Chris Crofton went off a little bit. Plenty of Nashvillians are frustrated with our parking situation. So the $60,000 question is, what, if anything, can the city do about it? We want to know how you feel about parking in our city. Have you parked somewhere only to be charged more than you anticipated? Do you even attempt to park downtown? If so, what's your routine? If not, how do you visit downtown? And have you received a ticket or the dreaded boot? You can call us at 615-760-2000. That's 615-760-2000 to join the conversation. Now, I want to welcome our first guests, both of whom are frustrated with our parking situation. Attorney Nicholas Brindle got the boot when he parked downtown, and District 19 Councilmember Jacob Kupin has had to handle many of the problems with parking management companies overcharging or wrongfully charging in the downtown area. I'd like to welcome both of you to This is Nashville. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
All right. So, Nicholas, I'm going to start with your story.
Sure.
You ended up filing a class action lawsuit valued at $1 million against Nashville Booting Company.
Yes.
Can you talk to us about that fateful day when your car got the boot? And for listeners, just to remind you, if you haven't gotten the boot, a boot is the vehicle lock to lock your vehicle in place via the tire. You can buy one on Amazon from $30 to $100. Tell us what happened on that day, Nicholas.
Sure. It was, I was actually looking back to see the exact day. It was the first day of summer in 2018. I worked downtown for the state, and so I actually had, at that time, paid to park at the MTA garage, the WeGo garage now. And they had been doing some renovations, and my wife was pregnant with her first child, so we both drove in the morning. It was all fine. Lunch, I took her back because she had to go to an appointment. Came back, Metro Garage, they were messing with the ramp or something. So at the time, they were run by Premier Parking, and they just said, hey, just go park in one of our various little lots around here. They had one right across the street, but I was like, it's a little crowded, so I'll go to this other one. And I neglected to look to see that it was actually owned by Premier, so my bad. So this was about like 1 o'clock. Get back from lunch, park over there, failed to look at the sign to see if it was Premier. Get out of work about 4:15, 4:20. It's 95 degrees, have a suit on, and I got the boot. And this was, it's one of those lots, if you're most familiar, by the Bible Publishing Company and James Robertson, little tiny lot. So anyway, so I got this booting ticket. I look at it, they didn't put a time on or anything, but I called the number. And actually, while I was waiting, I started looking up the Nashville ordinances on it. I was like, they have to be here in an hour to get it because, I'm a lawyer. I was bored. I was hot. Called the number. That actually gave me another number to call. Called that number about 4:41. Some girl at a call center was basically said, okay, somebody will be out there. And okay, hour comes. I called my wife first and said, hey, got the boot. I'm sorry, it might be a while. So then an hour comes and goes. I call the people and they have no idea what's going on or how to find out what's going on. So eventually by about 6:30, I was just like, all right, told my wife to come get me and screw this, or pardon my language. But I'm going to go ahead and head home. I'm mad. They did not, follow what they were required to do in terms of getting it to me. And I think basically at almost 2 hours after I had originally called, I finally got a call back. At this point, I'm back at home. The guy was confused that he just clocked in at 6. Was like, well, I'm going to get your car. I was like, yeah, I've been waiting 2 hours. Long story short, I was, I came next morning, had to wait another 45 minutes to get my car. I was mad. I was going to go, go to the Nashville Transportation Licensing Committee. But again, like I said, my wife was pregnant with our first kid, so I just kind of let it go. And then I think it was September of 2020, during the pandemic, I happened across a local segment on the news where I saw attorney Mark Hammervold started telling stories very similar to mine, and he's basically initiating the class action. And I said, hey, I've got I'm a lawyer. I'm OCD on a good day. So I had documented everything. I was like, here's all this. All of a sudden my wife was pregnant. I had to wait in the heat, basically fit the exact story line of sort of what he was talking about to try and see if how many other people out there had been messed with it. He's like, this is great. We'll add you as one of the named plaintiffs. And then we just recently settled that suit, I think, with, and then so this all went on depositions and everything during the pandemic. And then they recently reached a settlement with Nashville Booting. And I think there's still issues at play with regards to like their insurer that I don't want to bore everybody with today. Mm-hmm. But I didn't even care. I just wanted them to, like, one of the things I think they had to stipulate was that they were changing their policies because it wasn't about getting money. I was just angry at the fact that they could just do that without any repercussions. And it seems like they had set their business up to, like, they weren't staffed enough to get everybody there. They weren't doing, and that's kind of a big bridge to where they can, like, it wasn't that long ago where the idea that a company could just come and, boot your car just out of nowhere. We kind of crossed a line there, but with that, and I understand the lots were for it and all that, but it's like you're going to have some responsibility if you're going to do that sort of thing. So,
do you think being an attorney helped you in this situation?
Oh, yeah. It helped me in terms of not, I wasn't planning ahead for there to be a lawsuit, but I had everything super documented. I had, saved my call records to just show it like I was going to make the case. It was, I don't know if it's the actual legal knowledge or the type of character traits that make one become attorney that proved helpful as far as like, I don't, there's nothing like righteous indignation in terms of like when you're actually in the right. So, and I was in the right. I was OCD. I was documenting everything, and I was angry. So I had all that with me. And then, I think as far as from the lawsuit goes, it helps that my pregnant wife had to come and get me. And, but yeah, I think it helped give my attorney, and I'm smart enough attorney to know that to get out of his way because it's not the type of law I do. But I just had everything there already done, documented, handed it to him and said, if you want to do something with it, it's fine. Mm-hmm. I just want to, pardon the phrase, but like I want to see them burn to the ground. But
I think a lot of Nashvillians may have expressed those same sentiments. Now, Councilmember Kupin, you've been working with the parking management companies and have handled a lot of complaints, numerous complaints from constituents of being overly charged and wrongfully fined by these parking management companies. How is it that private parking management companies, how are they managing these lots and not the city? Why?
Yeah, great question. And I want to kind of echo what was said before. I think that a parking ticket, while frustrating, is something you can tuck in your dashboard, go on with your day, go home and address. And if it was wrongfully charged or wrongfully created, you can address that after the fact, and you haven't actually paid anything, right? Oftentimes it's asking you to pay that bill, whereas a boot disrupts your whole day. It's intrusive, it's disruptive, it makes your pregnant wife have to come get you and completely ruins your experience. So to me, that should be a level 10, not a regular tool that's used. And so I think that's an important piece to this conversation. As far as parking companies, I've done a lot of work with the companies in town, like Metropolis, like SP Plus, like Park Happy, to work with them on what people are seeing, what's going well, what's not going well, right? Metropolis I've worked extensively with, and they've continued to make improvements in that space. I think the technology they have that lets you drive in and out is great. It flows traffic better, it moves people faster, awesome. But we were talking about this earlier, and I've shared this with them, that the concern I have is that it's a new software, it's a new system. When that glitches, when that doesn't work, right now the onus is on the people to go fight that, to go appeal that. The other day, I parked in a garage, I validated, I got home, I had a bill. I reached out to them, they quickly removed that bill, but I had to do that work, and had I not caught that, I would be charged that money. Another initiative that I've been working pretty hard on, and we're kind of caught up a little bit in state bill versus local bill, and I don't want to bore people with the details, but I've been trying to get our code enforced, which says that parking lots have to display their prices on the way in. I'm not really in the business of trying to force a private company to charge a certain rate. I'd love to, but that's really not my scope. But I want to make sure people are clear with what they're being charged. And I think right now, one of the biggest gaps we have is there's no clarity. You can drive into a parking garage right now with no concept of what you're paying. And the only way you know that is if you take the onus to open the app and go through a couple screens to get to a rate sheet that if you're running late for an appointment, you may not do. And oftentimes people will come back and then be charged much more than they expected. Or again, wrongfully booted, wrongfully ticketed, and it affects all of us. I mean, we've heard the mayor's had that experience. I've had that experience. Others have had that experience. So I think it's something that's really important for us to continue working on.
That experience is widespread. I'm looking at everyone in the control room, and they're nodding their heads in agreement. And if you have had a problem with parking or you're frustrated with parking, give us a call, 615-760-2000. That's 615-760-2000. Now, Councilmember, you mentioned these apps, QR codes, digital apps that are charging for fees and fines. What are some of the problems that are there? I understand the supposed convenience that these things offer, but it's creating issues. This technology is not perfect.
Yeah, so I mean, a couple things. I think that, and I've spoken to Metropolis about this and encouraged them to look at how their app lays out. So if you use a general parking app like Spot Hero, for example, on that app screen, you can see little pins with all the prices. Again, fair consumer shopping. And one of those dots may be $100, right? And one of them might be $10, but at least that lets me make a decision on what I want to pay and make a conscious choice. Right now, the Metropolis app does have all Ps. And again, I've shared this with them, and they've been really open to feedback and suggestions, and I appreciate that partnership together. But to me, that there's a disruption on the clarity for folks to know what they're actually paying. And all of this hinges on smartphones, right? I get emails. I joke I'm the only councilman who's got constituents out in like Wisconsin and Arkansas, because I'll get emails from people that have visited Nashville for the weekend, have gone home, and then found some sort of a bill or some sort of an issue, and oftentimes they're older. They don't have smartphones. I've got one couple that said, we've been parking in cities for years. We drove into a lot kind of similar to the story we heard earlier. We didn't see any machines. We saw some signs we didn't really understand. We didn't see a number to call anybody, and we kind of assumed that it was a city lot. And so we left and we came back to a boot on our car. And again, I think that's kind of the challenge that we're seeing is that folks, again, I hear a lot of time this same story, like, yes, I made a mistake. I missed something, but I made a small mistake. I missed a small thing and it's turned into a big consequence. And I think that's part of the issue is that off balance of crime and punishment, so to speak.
Nicholas, you mentioned a small mistake you didn't see to make sure that it was in one of these lots. But when you are parking downtown, do you see pricing clearly displayed anywhere?
I'm trying to think because I've lived in Nashville long enough that like I have a few go-to spots that I don't trust. I don't even mess with it. So the ones that I still go to, like to the MTA garage or it's the WeGo garage now, and I do think they have a pretty clear signage on there as you go in, at least for game day stuff. It can be, I don't know, it's going to be a lot. And you're committing. That's basically what I know. It's going to be $20 at least. And then a couple of the smaller lots, it is. I do the ones that I use. They're like kind of easy to get in, easy to get out. Nobody uses. I wouldn't say it's very clear. I mean, if I didn't know what it was going to be, I would have some trouble paying it. I will say this though. To the council, what the council member was saying, like I've given up on the idea of shopping for parking. I'm just, it's convenience, and I assume the price is going to be pretty much the same. And I used to have a nice stash of quarters when I could go to the meters that still took those downtown as a fail safe, or actually as first option if it was available. But the clarity issue is it's pretty. I haven't seen I don't ever recall seeing one where it was just crystal clear. We'll just put it that way.
And if I could jump in real quick on that as well. Again, a lot of this stuff has great pros and great cons. One of the things we're seeing more and more of is dynamic pricing, right? So Metropolis's technology can be really cool because it can create a situation where if you're a regular parker at the garage, you're going to see a different set of rates than someone who's just there one time. But the other side of that issue is that you may park in a garage that historically was $15, and you say, all right, fine, it's $15. Okay. And then you park there and you find out, oh, it was a surge time and it was $50, right? And so so we see that sometimes too, where those rates change dynamically, which can again be a benefit. But if they're going to change, you want to make sure people know as they're entering what they're going to pay.
All right, we got a call from Jay in Nashville. Jay, thank you for joining us, my friend. What do you want to share?
Well, I was downtown with some clients, and we parked. We got the very first parking spot, and I didn't realize it was a paid parking lot. And so we ate. I got in the car. Nobody booted me. I drove home. But then I got, I think the parking probably would have been, I don't know, $20 to $30, $40 normally. But because I didn't pay, so I got a bill for $187.
Whoa.
That seems outrageous to me.
That's very outrageous. I agree. Comment, council member?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that comes back. First of all, I'm sorry that happened to you. That comes back to kind of the earlier conversation that we need to be more clear. The companies need to be more clear, indicating that A, you have to pay, and B, how much it is, and C, what the punishment if you don't do it is, so that at least you make a conscious choice saying, I'm going to run in real quick and I hope I don't get a ticket, versus parking and not knowing, thinking it might be a free lot, or, not expecting that level of fee. I know that there's some local and state things we're looking at from a ticket perspective. But again, I come back to crime and punishment, right? One of the arguments I make against booting is that there are people out there that historically will not pay over and over and over again. If you've done that 5, 6, 7, 8 times and you're intentionally doing that, I understand why a boot would be used. But again, if you're someone who's regularly parking in places, you make an honest mistake, in my opinion, you shouldn't be penalized almost $200 for an honest mistake.
Now, Jay, let me ask you, has this situation given you reason to not park or come downtown anymore?
Yeah, I don't visit downtown as much. It has affected, how much I want to drive into Davidson County and park.
Excellent. I really thank you. Thank you very much for calling and being a part of the conversation. Now, that's something that I find interesting. People getting charged, going through experiences like Jay, is decreasing their desire to come experience Nashville downtown. He said Davidson County in general.
I actually take a ride share now if I'm going to be downtown for like more than a couple hours. It's cheaper. It's cheaper to take a lift from. I live in the nation, so I'm not that far away. But on a good day, it's going to be, if I could tip 100%, and it would still be cheaper than parking at the Metro Garage for more than 2 hours or 3 hours.
All right, we got another call from Cheryl. Cheryl in Lebanon. Cheryl, thanks for holding. What do you want to share with us?
Hi, I'll tell you I appreciate your program. I'm a 77-year-old woman. I took my grandson the beginning of November to a Predators game, complimentary tickets. I left early in order to find parking because other things, it was a Saturday night, so I knew other things were going on. It took me over an hour to find a parking garage. Many of them were already closed, and by the time you got to the gate, you stood in line, and then they were closed, so you had to find another one. I finally found a parking spot almost on the very top floor, which took me quite some time. But when I was leaving, it took me almost an hour and a half to leave the parking garage due to the traffic. And I got my bill last week. It was $61. So what turned out to be, I thought would be a relatively inexpensive, fun evening for my grandson, turned out to be more than I had expected. And like I said, I did to sit in the parking garage an hour and a half. I couldn't even back out my parking spot.
So, Cheryl, you got charged while you were trying to leave the parking lot.
Correct. Yes, they don't read your license plate until you leave the facility.
Now, I got to ask you, Councilmember Kupin, is that a predatory practice? I mean, that doesn't seem fair.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of what we're seeing with the parking doesn't feel fair to me. And again, I want to be careful to say that, these companies are engaging in conversation. We are working on these efforts. But to me, fair is knowing what you're going to pay and paying what you've consumed, right? And again, if you're stuck in a garage because the garage is backed up, you're not trying to consume that parking. So you shouldn't be paying for that parking. Shelley, you've hit one of my favorite issues that I'm working on, which is garage flow. There's like the library garage downtown, for example, something I'm working pretty hard on. It's got a good rate. It's got, good, right? It's not the days of the quarters and dollars, but it's relative to the other lots. It's got a fair price, but that lot gets very backed up. And so I'm working with Downtown Partnership and other entities to get that garage moving more quickly so that folks can exit. But again, that comes back to what we were talking about earlier of making sure that people know where garages are, what they're going to cost, and can easily get in and out of them.
We have a note from my producers. They say, according to information from the Nashville scene, around 39,000 privately owned parking spots exist in surface lots and parking decks downtown, with an additional 2,000 curbside spaces owned by the city, meaning that there is a significant portion of downtown Nashville dedicated to parking, yet our situation remains a mess. Cheryl, thank you so much for giving us a call. Really appreciate it. Have a good one, okay?
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you as well. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to learn how one East Nashville neighborhood worked out their parking puzzle with the help of a Metro Council member. If you have an issue with parking, give us a call, 615-760-2000. If you're already on the line, stay on the line because we're going to come to your calls when we come back. Stay with us. This is Nashville.
Funding for This is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP, and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Khalil Colonna, and this is Nashville. We're talking about parking in the city today. Now, we kicked off the show discussing the quagmire of parking downtown. But downtown is not the only place where parking is tight. It can happen in neighborhoods all over Davidson County. At Porterwood and Greenwood Avenue in East Nashville, for example, businesses had proliferated in the residential area. Everyone was parking on both sides of the street, and the area had become a danger zone of fender benders. So much so that residents created a street altar of broken car parts dedicated for minor accidents in the area. A solution was found only after Councilmember Clay Capp got involved. He's here with us now to talk about that. Councilmember Capp, welcome back to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, we got a lot of calls. We're going to ask some questions, but trust everybody who's on the line, stay on the line. We are going to come to your calls. Now, and if you want to make a call, call us at 615-760-2000. That's 615-760-2000. All right, Councilmember Capp, tell us about that former situation that I just mentioned on Porter Road and Greenwood Avenue. What was happening in that neighborhood?
Sure. So there's a lot of great businesses at that corner, Porter Road and Greenwood. There have been businesses there for years and years. And, you know, right now there's a great mix of excellent local businesses, and a lot of folks want to be there. And so Greenwood runs east and west. And where it kind of heads east toward Porter, particularly between Scott and Porter and really Gentry and Porter, it's a long straightaway there. And the road is narrow enough so that if folks are parking on both sides, the demand was high enough that those spots were pretty filled up all the time. Mm-hmm. You get a long straightaway, and so folks are, you know, trying to shoot that straightaway. And there's lots of homes on either side of Greenwood where folks are pulling out of their driveways. And it got dangerous. There's a lot of, as you said, fender benders, and there's a utility pole decorated with broken mirrors and windshield, little parts of cars that have been broken off and parts of bumpers and stuff. And it had just gotten to be a dangerous scenario.
How was the issue resolved?
So there's an interesting metro policy. There's a lot of interesting things if you dig around the metro code, a lot of quirks in our metro policies. But if there's 30 feet of pavement width, there's actually an interesting quirk in our traffic and parking commission policies that allow a metro council member kind of a quasi-executive power within the district. That's not ordinary. I know a lot of our constituents maybe sometimes wish we did have executive power within the district, but we don't. But this is an instance where NDOT, which is the department that's in charge of our streets and right-of-ways, allows a district council member to decide whether parking will be restricted there or not. It is not ordinary for a district council member to have a neighborhood issue where feeling is unanimous or anywhere close to it. I would say in this one, it was actually pretty close. So I held a community meeting, and the lens I took there was overall safety. Mm-hmm. And there had just been too many problems. And sometimes parking on both sides of a street can slow cars down and can sometimes lead to safer, slower driving. In this particular instance, the layout of the street and the length of that straightaway was leading a lot of people to try to shoot through it. And if two people were coming in at opposite ends, they often couldn't see each other and things would get blocked up. And so the safety lens is what I really took. And with great community feedback, we held it outside at Tabula Rasa Toys out on the porch. It was like a beautiful spring day, and a lot of the neighborhood came out. There's lots of different details to folks' views and experience, but there's pretty good consensus about restricting that parking. And so that's what I did, and NDOT restriped it, within 6 weeks maybe of the meeting, and it's been a good success. It's been much safer.
Okay, we're going to go to some phone calls. We got Chris Crofton on line 3. Chris, thank you for calling, sir. What do you want to share with us?
Hey, how are you? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, sir. Yes, we can.
Okay, good. I'm in the car, and it's like raining. I just was wondering for Council Member Capp or for any council member, I don't know if Council Member Kupin is still on the phone, but who allowed this to happen? Why, like over by Elliston Place, are the parking spaces pay parking now when they didn't used to be? And how in the world can a city make people have to have a smartphone in order to park? Who made it okay for QR codes to be introduced into parking when that means people who don't have smartphones can't even use the town of Nashville? How did that happen, and who allowed it, and who's profiting from it? That's what I want to know.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for that.
Hey, Chris, good to talk with you. Kupin is not here, although I do believe he'll be back. But I'll do my best. That's not my part of town. And the basic answer as to how it happened or, what the mechanism was, truthfully, I don't know. But I think that the fact that you need a smartphone is a huge problem. I mean, I'm young enough that I've, have facility with the smartphone, but I don't like to have it on me all the time or, to be so reliant on it in order to park somewhere. I've been very annoyed by that myself personally. I will mention one thing. This is not directly related to your question, but one thing I would want everybody to know is that if you drive an electric car or a hybrid, you can apply for a green parking permit that actually makes that metered parking downtown free or reduced. And so you can apply for that at nashville.gov, and it's a great way to incentivize, a hybrid or electric car, particularly at a time when our partners at the state level are charging a $200 electric vehicle fee. And I'm reminded of that because mine just came due this week. When we should be incentivizing that kind of sustainability, and that's at least one way to park a little bit more cheaply downtown.
All right, Chris, thank you so much for calling. I got plenty of calls to get to. We're going to get to them. Thanks, my friend.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go to another call. We got Daniel in East Nashville. Daniel, thank you for calling. What do you want to share?
Hey, Khalil, thanks for taking the call. And first I'd like to start off with, I actually live on Greenwood near the intersection, and it was really nice to see that the city took action and changed that into one-sided parking. It's definitely a better situation down there now, so that's awesome. Actually, I had a similar question as the previous caller, Chris, had. I was curious, like how most of the parking in Nashville has become privatized and for profit. Even the street parking, which up until recently was city run and very inexpensive, but now it's, of course, the cost has gone up, and a lot of it is for profit now.
Why is that?
To tell you the truth, I don't know how that happened. I mean, I think the privately owned lots are probably just finding it a lot more valuable, to their assets to do it that way. A lot of those changes that took place in the downtown stuff, predates either my or Councilmember Kupin's time on the Metro Council. Mm-hmm. And so I regret not being able to give you a better historical answer to the when and the why on that. And of course, when it comes to district matters, I would defer to Councilmember Kupin on what's happening specifically in his district.
Thank you. I understand that. Daniel, we have the mayor on the show tomorrow. We will make sure we ask him this question during Ask the Mayor, or you can call up to ask the mayor this question yourself. Really appreciate your call, Daniel. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Khalil. Take care.
All right. You too, my friend. All right. As I mentioned, Mayor Freddie O'Connell, and this was mentioned in the top of the show, even the mayor and public officials are not immune to suffering from oversized parking. We've got Senator Charlene Oliver on the line. State Senator Charlene Oliver, thank you so much for giving us a call. What do you want to share?
Hi, Khalil. Thanks for having me on. I want to share the fact that this has happened to me as well. I sympathize with everyone in Nashville who is experiencing parking woes. This summer I went to have brunch with my girlfriends in East Nashville, and I went into one of those parking lots where they take a picture of your license plate when you leave. And it was free parking for 1 hour for the restaurant. But, of course, I stayed over a little bit, and they already had my debit card, so they ended up charging me for the overage, but they ended up charging me for the full day worth of parking. And then I get a citation in the mail for $105 for a ticket, and then they threatened to send me to collections. So on top of this, it's it's causing a disruption for people. There are too many companies, for one, to track down who I'm supposed to pay. And then secondly, this is disrupting people's quality of life and contributing to the high cost of living in Nashville that we didn't used to have. And so I share the previous caller's sentiments that these lots that used to be available for free are now privatized and commercialized. You can't find empty gravel of dirt in Midtown or downtown that actually is available to park unless there's a QR code. So it feels predatory. So I would love to see something happening on the local level and even partner to see if there's something that we can do on the state level with our council members.
Senator Oliver, yeah, thanks so much. I'm just glad to be on with you. And I will say you were so helpful in some of those booting issues and part of the parts of our district that overlap back before state legislation sort of really helped out that booting situation. So, I know that we've been involved in those, and thanks for your help on that. I'll say that just like you, folks who, grew up here find it really hard to quite understand and embrace the fact that Nashville's so congested and it's so hard to park. It just feels radically different than the Nashville that we knew and are familiar with. Change is inevitable. Growth is great. You'd rather have the problems of growth than the opposite. But I completely agree that navigating, you go downtown, you grew up in Nashville, and it's can't navigate it, and it's unrecognizable. And I agree that that's a lot of the distress that folks are feeling.
Yes. State Senator Charlene Oliver, thank you so much for calling and adding to the conversation. Really appreciate it. Have a good one, okay?
Thank you. You too.
All right. We're going to go to another call. We've got Debbie in Nashville who has a very important question. Debbie, thank you for calling us. Please share your question. How you doing?
Hey, thanks. I wanted to piggyback on some of the most previous callers that I don't understand how we got here. And the fact that nobody knows is a little alarming because this is not a downtown problem. It is everywhere you go in Nashville because they're all hot little pop-up neighborhoods. And I don't think it's just, we've grown a lot. And I wonder who's profiting from this. Is there a revenue stream that the city's getting that they rely on from this? Or, who does it benefit? It's certainly not benefiting Nashville because sure, we're big, we've grown, but the companies are terrible. They're just a pox, and there's no good appeal process with most of them. Anybody who has a day job and has a problem with parking is, can't really resolve them easily. It becomes a part-time job. So I'm just wondering, how did this happen to us? Who is letting it continue? How do we stop it? Do we need to have a giant revolution in the city against the parking overlords who are just abusing the situation? So that's basically my question. But I think other speakers, my councilman member is not on this show right now. So I wonder how do we change it? What's preventing us from changing it?
Debbie, thank you for calling and sharing something with us. Now, Councilmember Cap, do you recommend that everyone listening, write out and reach out to their council members so something can be addressed in Metro Council? Sure,
yeah. And I think to get at the question, the private parking lots, those are owned by private companies, and they're the ones who are profiting from that. I appreciate Senator Oliver's suggestion that there may be, potential for state-level regulatory improvements there. The metered parking that you see downtown and as she mentioned in other parts of the city, those are city streets. And so the city is realizing revenue from those meters. And those are going into improvements, for our streets and transportation. I am extremely excited that we now have a great revenue stream for our transportation infrastructure. And so I do think we could look at how much revenue we're realizing from the street parking and if we, what we can do in light of the passage of the transportation referendum.
All right. We'll see. Debbie, thank you so much for calling us. Have a happy holiday, okay?
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to James because, James, thank you for calling because James has an interesting comment. State Senator Charlene Oliver mentioned how it can disrupt people who work downtown. James, you work downtown, correct?
Yes, sir.
And tell us what your parking issue is.
Well, I'm a commercial driver, I work for this company. I have commercial license plates on my van, and I deliver downtown. There's nowhere to park for commercial vehicles. I had a situation with one of the businesses I was delivering to. It's much easier for me to deliver to the back than it is the front because they got patrons in there. So there was a section of the building where I was at where the trash people pick up the trash. Parked my van right there. Part of it was in the where the trash containers are, and the other half was in the street to keep them blocking the street. I wasn't in there but another 3 minutes. I come back outside. I'd have been ticketed by Metro for a ticket for. I just looked at the ticket. They charged me $89. I could have been in there no more than 2 minutes or something, and I got commercial plates on my vehicle to let them know I'm doing deliveries. Nashville, it's all about money. It's not only these private people that own these lots. Metro themselves, they got tickets and stuff so high, and it don't make sense. I knew I was in the wrong, but they almost charged me $100 downtown doing my job, and like I said, I knew I was in the wrong, so I guess I got to pay. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's right. Tickets and stuff are so high, it's ridiculous.
I understand your struggles right there, James, and thank you for calling us. I got to ask you this, council member. Does the city need more loading and unloading zones? In all the other cities I lived, even in Albuquerque, which is about the same population as Nashville, there's loading and unloading signs, particularly in the downtown area for folks like James who work as delivery drivers.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel very much the passion of the callers about these issues. A lot of this recent segment have been a lot of downtown stuff, and Councilmember Kupin, I believe, is coming back. I do know a lot of work has been done on activating the curb downtown to work on loading, unloading, ride share, those kinds of, where you're dropping folks off or dropping cargo off to not block the street. And I believe that with Councilmember Kupin's strong involvement, NDOT is developing a plan for activating the curb that way. And so those are, maybe not unique, but largely downtown issues. And I completely understand the frustration that folks have there, but I do think that they're working on those unloading and unloading kind of topics.
All right, James, thank you so much for calling us. Really appreciate it. Have a happy holiday, my friend.
You all do the same. Appreciate you taking my call.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Any and every time. Okay, we're going to go to breaks. I need Scott, Diana, and Trish to hold on. We will come back to your calls because obviously this is very important to everyone who is listening. All right, on for that next break. When we come back, we'll look at potential long-term solutions to the parking problem when we talk with both council members there who are taking the charge. We want to hear from you. What's your solution if you got one? Call us at 615-760-2000. Stay with us. This is Nashville. I'm Khalil Ekulona, and this is Nashville. Parking in Nashville is a long, long way away from needing to have quarters in your car. Today, it's all about apps and smartphones. In some cases, it takes a detective or an investigative journalist to learn just how much you will pay in parking. And we heard about 2 parking issues that have been addressed with temporary solutions, and we've heard about many, many, many calls today of people who have their complaints about parking. But what about solutions? Permanent solutions. I'm joined by Metro Council members Clay Capp and Jacob Kupin to discuss. Again, gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us. And we want to hear from you as we have been hearing from you today. So give us a call, 615-760-2000 to share. Now, I do want to mention this. Some of the issues we discussed here have been temporarily resolved through government response and action. Nashville Department of Transportation Director Diana Alacon has told our producer last week she's currently in the process of speaking with Nashville's parking management companies. She says this, quote, "There is ample parking in Nashville. The companies have gone haywire," end quote. She spoke of the the problem of dynamic pricing. She also said that she's exploring a parking rate for Nashville residents that would be significantly less for non-residents. When you hear that, council members, what comes to mind? What reactions do you have to that?
I think that sounds great.
Yeah, I think that's incredible. It's something we've been working on again with some of these other parking management companies, and that's where I talk about just kind of picking on Metropolis, but their technology could be used for that. If they were willing and we were able to do that, they can actually use that technology to know that Councilman Cap's license plate is his, and know that he is a local to downtown, and give him a different rate. We have seen that with a couple companies working on musician parking. One of my biggest challenges is that we've got musicians, as people know, that keep downtown Nashville what it is, to keep it Music City. And so there's a lot of challenges where someone will come and work a shift and play 4 or 5 hours. And as you heard before, they're paying $20 or $30 just to show up and play. And so we have had Metropolis and others issue some parking discounts for those folks. But again, that's not enough dollar-wise, because taking it down from 30 to 15 is still expensive. I did want to share, if I could as well, just a question that a caller asked earlier about where is the money going from on-street parking. And I wanted to share that the Demumbrian Street bikeway improvements, so we've got a protected bike lane on Demumbrian Street. We've got pedestrian improvements to make that area safer. That was funded in part by money from the on-street parking. So the good news is that is getting funneled back into infrastructure. It's getting funneled back into projects that make our community safer. But again, I do share that the sentiment of the caller that, why should you need a smartphone to park? I've got someone I've talked to regularly that doesn't and can't park anywhere.
And it's about accessibility for different types of folks. Trish, we've got Trish on the line. You've been waiting patiently. Thank you so much, Trish. What do you want to share with us?
Yeah, thank you. I am a permanently disabled veteran with permanently disabled tags, and I have a workaround for, venues downtown, but I do go to Midtown a lot and use the metro streets, and I have never gotten ticketed. But you mentioned if you could give us some clarity on these private booting companies, and if they would be tempted to boot someone like me, because it would cause me to go to the ER if I had to wait that long.
Well, thank you for your service and for calling in. To my understanding, it's unlikely to see a boot on one of the metro streets. I don't want to say for sure, because of course, as soon as I say that, someone's going to get a boot. But that is something that I don't think we're really trying to do. And again, kind of what we shared earlier, the state has passed some laws around booting that actually conflict a little bit with metro statutes and have seemed to have boxed out booting companies altogether. So there's litigation moving through the city and state right now about what booting companies are going to look like. And I'm sure we'll see more about this in this upcoming state legislative session. But I share that sentiment. Again, I think that if a ticket allows for someone to say, hey, this was a mistake, and get that resolved before they're out any money or time. A boot, even if it's a mistake, even if you get all your dollars back, they can't give you your time, they can't give you your stress back, and you're stuck there and you're at their mercy until they come and release you. So to me, I would love to see booting only reserved for absolute extreme cases and not for anything else.
All right, Trish.
Thank you for all you do.
Trish, thank you for calling in, and have a happy holiday, okay?
You as well.
All right. We had a caller, someone who couldn't stay on the line, Julie, called, and she said, it's the parking fees that really get her incensed, but these service fees that people also get charged by these private parking companies. I understand that there's competition. These are private companies. They have taken on this. They're competing to make a profit. But I have to say that a lot of people feel like this is predatory. And if the city has parking, why can't the city necessarily expand their parking to take over where some of these private parking companies are? That's a question for me. If it's making money for the city already, why not expand the city's parking by taking some of these lots back and make more money, but have fair pricing?
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I would say there's a couple challenges to that. I think that I wouldn't necessarily say that the on-street parking is making money so much as there's a little bit of pot to kind of use it and make some infrastructure improvements and things like that. But if we had to buy that real estate, it might not work in the same way. We're actually, with the on-street parking, starting to do economy zones and discount zones. We're actually bringing the prices down in some areas. And as you know, downtown real estate is really expensive, so it's hard to acquire that. I do find myself in Franklin and in other areas that have free city garages, and I do wish we had more of that. And I hope we do. Again, the other exciting thing, I think Councilman Cap alluded to it, is we passed the transit referendum. And so my hope is that also makes a big impact. I tell people I live up in the Germantown area, and the bus that comes down 8th Avenue turns to go to Wego Central and stops. And so if I want to get from my home to the Bridgestone on transit, I have to take a bus that I'm going to wait for, go to Wego Central, wait for another bus to come back out of downtown to get to the Bridgestone. It's about a 45-minute to an hour experience, or it's 10 minutes to drive. So with these transit improvements, maybe someone else might not be using the transit, but I'm going to use it. And that takes my car off the road, takes my car out of that garage. And we know with supply and demand, if you start to pull the demand from cars off, that pulls prices down as well.
We got a call from Scott out in Clarksville. Scott, what would you like to share with us, my friend?
How's it going, guys? Hey, Jacob, Scott Saunders here, by the way.
Oh, hey, what's going on, man?
Oh, not a lot. I've been in Davidson County for about 25 years, moved to Clarksville 3 years ago, and my first experience going into downtown Clarksville for an evening out was amazing. And my first thought was, this is the way it's supposed to be, because I drove into downtown, parked on the street for free, walked about 2 blocks to a restaurant, got served in and out of there. It was enjoyable, came back out, and on weekends, I got to give Clarksville props. On weekends, their Metro garage is free. So that's a giant, enjoyable difference compared to the effort it takes just to get into downtown to even start your night or your day. So Clarksville has a big win for there. My second comment is, considering those free garages on weekends, could Metro consider maybe having a free park day every 8 days or every 9 days, or some amount of time that would cause it to rotate different days throughout the month? Man, it'd be a great public relations thing just to put out some happiness.
That's a really good idea, Scott. Thank you for calling. As my uncle says, you sprinkle some free on it, a lot of people will take part and pick it up. I'd like to get your responses, gentlemen.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for that. One thing I wanted to mention, and I'm glad you did, is that there actually are 2 publicly owned garages downtown. I mentioned earlier in the show one way of parking a little bit more cheaply downtown, but another is those 2 public garages. One is underneath the courthouse. It's called Public Square Garage, and the other is at the library. They're much, much cheaper than those privately owned pay lots. The library one fills up, as Councilmember Kupin knows. Public Square Garage is generally not full. It's a little bit of a farther walk maybe than where folks want to go, but it is something to bear in mind. As to making those free, I think we've got a lease agreement with whoever operates those at the moment. But, I think that's something that, as you say, I think, could be something worth thinking about. Because we want folks to be able to get into and out of downtown. And I appreciate Councilmember Kupin saying earlier that if we're thinking about the long-term future of Nashville, we're not contemplating that there won't be tons of people driving, but developing and building our city going forward, there have got to be ways to get in and out of our city other than a car, meaning bikes, meaning pedestrians, meaning buses, that are safe and reliable. We've taken a huge step toward doing that. That will bring relief across the board, even for drivers.
Mm-hmm. Scott, thank you so much for calling. Have a happy holiday to you, my friend. Now, I don't have enough time to take calls. We've only got a minute left. So Wes in West Nashville and Carol in Nashville, Oak Hill, thank you so much for calling. We are going to try to address these issues with the council members after the show. Real quick, Wendy called. She wasn't able to stay on. Councilmember Kupin, this is for you. She's worried about parking with the soccer stadium. She says residents are being inundated during games. I'm leaving you only the 30 seconds to answer this.
Well, the solution is, just kidding. No, so I think that's a great question. Thanks for asking it. I would direct her to speak with Councilwoman Terry Vo. Councilwoman Vo has the soccer stadium area in her district. And that is something. I attend soccer games, and we see the traffic kind of spill into the neighborhood, and we see people walking on sidewalks. And I know that's something that Councilwoman Vo is working pretty hard on. So again, kind of to what was said earlier, reach out to your council people. If you've got concerns, we're here to respond and address them.
Now, I want to thank you both for coming on to the show and taking on these questions from the people. This is something that's very, very important to all of us. Let me ask you both of you this. Are you going to be paying attention when you park downtown the next time?
No question.
Always.
Always. That's what we're doing. All right. Jacob Kupin is Metro Council member for District 19, and Clay Capp is council member for District 6. Again, gentlemen, thank you both for being with us today and taking these questions. I know it's not easy.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Love the questions.
All right. And thanks to you for tuning in this hour. This is Nashville is a production of Nashville Public Radio. Today's episode was produced by Joan Kite. It was directed by Mary Mancini. Our technical director and board operator is Liv Lombardi, and Justin Barney from WNXP was on the phones. Thank you for that help, my friend. The masterminds behind our theme music are LaRange and Namir Blade. You can listen back at thisisnashville.org or wherever you get good podcasts. And the special thanks to you, everyone who called in. Parking is a big issue. Hopefully we can get something settled out here pretty soon. You can always comment and tell us what you want to hear on the show by leaving us a message. 615-751-2500, or hit us up, Blue Sky, Instagram, or X, whatever you want to do. This is Nashville. I'm Khalil A. Colonna. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody, and be good to each other.